Ever feel like no matter how hard you try, your house resets to clutter the moment you sit down? That every drawer, every corner, every flat surface is secretly planning a rebellion the second you stop watching? You're not alone, and you're not the problem. American seniors are taught to manage, sort, store, and fight mess like it's a full-time job. But in Japan, older adults do something radical. They stop managing and start letting the house manage itself. Sounds impossible? It's not. Japanese homes don't stay neat because they are minimal or sterile. They stay neat because seniors there use quiet, intelligent habits that keep clutter from even forming. No bins. No checklists. No color-coded chaos. These aren't cleaning hacks, they're mindset shifts built into the bones of daily life. And they work especially well for people over 60 who are tired of wrestling with stuff that no longer serves them. If you've ever felt overwhelmed, resentful of your space, or like your energy goes into keeping up appearances instead of enjoying your home, keep watching. These 7 habits aren't about doing more. They're about doing differently. And once you try even one of them, your home will start to feel like it finally wants to help you back. Mr. Bolton Teraji is 84 years old and lives alone in a modest one-story ranch home just outside Ottumwa, Iowa. His voice is low, a little gravelly, and when he speaks, you can tell he's the kind of man who's done a lot of listening in his life. He spent decades as a farm mechanic, organized in his tools, scattered everywhere else. After his wife passed, the house turned into what he called a museum of almosts. Half-read books, unfinished puzzles, scattered screws in teacups. Not dirty. Just constantly unsettled. It was like the house was always waiting for me to do something, he said. But there's something different about Mr. Taraji. His last name came from his wife, Aiko, a quiet, steady woman born in Osaka, who never raised her voice and never lost a spoon. She passed away nearly 15 years ago, but before that, she spent 4 decades folding habits into their life, habits he never took seriously. Not at first. She didn't lecture or label or make charts. She just did things differently. Quietly. Repeatedly. And over time, those quiet actions became the bones of their home. The floor stayed clear without being swept. The kitchen never needed rearranging. Bolton would always say, "It's like the house just obeys her." After her passing, the house changed, but the habit stayed. Bolton didn't clean harder. He didn't hire help. He started doing things the way she had, mostly because it felt like keeping her close. But something strange happened. The clutter stopped building up. He wasn't putting things away all the time, yet nothing felt out of place. There were no cleaning days. No bins. No storage wars. Just small movements. A bowl here, a tray there, a pause before throwing anything into a drawer. And suddenly the house felt like it was cooperating. Like it remembered what she had taught it. Now, he says, I don't really clean the house anymore. I just live in it, and it kind of keeps itself steady. Bolton's story isn't about grief or romance. It's about rhythm. He didn't overhaul his life. He didn't become a minimalist. He just let go of the urge to control every corner, and started trusting the systems she'd built. Systems so subtle, most people would miss them. But not him. Not anymore. And once you hear the 7 habits she taught him, you'll start to see how a messy house isn't always about clutter. Sometimes, it's about a home that's never been taught how to breathe. Habit 1. Create loyal objects. Mr. Taraji had a pair of worn blue slippers that sat just inside his front door. Not tucked away. Not hidden in a bin. They were always positioned carefully, side by side, toes pointed slightly toward the hallway. To most visitors, they looked like any other pair of house shoes. But to Mr. Taraji, they were more than footwear. They were his quiet alarm system. He called them the guards. They never beeped, never flashed, never made a sound. But when something in the house was off, when a door had been left ajar, or a cushion was slightly out of place, or he had forgotten something on the porch, the slippers were the first to signal it. If he saw them crooked or knocked sideways, he didn't rush to fix the slippers. He paused, looked around, and 9 times out of 10, something else needed attention. Over time, he realized he wasn't watching the house anymore. The house was watching him, through objects like these. This habit, common among older adults in Japan, isn't superstition. It's practical mindfulness. Seniors there often assign quiet responsibilities to their surroundings, not because they believe the object has feelings, but because it reduces mental burden. Instead of tracking 50 different chores, they use a few familiar items as signals. One woman places her umbrella by the entryway mirror. If it falls over, she knows she forgot to prepare for the weather. Another keeps a wooden spoon across her stove knob. If it shifts, she checks to make sure the burner wasn't left on. These objects become loyal, not magical. Just consistent. In Mr. Taraji's case, the slippers gave him what every senior deserves: peace of mind without the pressure to remember everything. It's a quiet safety net that requires no energy, no reminders, no lists. Just presence. One pair of slippers doing their job. And here's where this habit becomes powerful for seniors in the US, especially those living alone, or with mild forgetfulness, or just too many small things to track. You don't need a fancy system. You just need a few objects you trust. Maybe a coffee mug turned a certain way when the dishwasher is loaded. Maybe a scarf on a chair that reminds you the mail still needs sorting. Maybe one basket that's always empty, and if it's not, you know you've postponed something. These aren't decorations. They are gentle sentinels. Objects that do a bit of the thinking for you, so your mind can rest. Because as we age, peace isn't about having less, it's about needing to remember less. And that starts with giving your things a purpose beyond sitting there. Give them a role. Let them help. And you'll be amazed how much lighter your home begins to feel. Habit 2. Interrupt patterns, not piles. There's a soft wind chime that hangs from the ceiling in Mr. Taraji's hallway. It's not fancy, just a simple piece of twine and 3 small metal bells that catch the light. Most visitors assume it's decorative. But in Mr. Taraji's home, that wind chime serves a different purpose. It's not there to sound pretty, it's there to interrupt patterns. See, Mr. Taraji didn't grow up with wind chimes indoors. That was Aiko's doing, his late wife. She hung one just low enough that if someone walked through the hallway with an armload of laundry, or a grocery bag, or a distracted mind, they'd bump into it. It would ring, not harshly, just enough to get your attention. And that sound, she used to say, wasn't a complaint. It was a question. What are you carrying that doesn't belong here? Over time, Mr. Taraji noticed something. The bell didn't just signal clutter after it happened. It stopped clutter from forming at all. If he was about to set down a magazine on the side table, just for a second, the faint memory of that chime reminded him not to. If he had groceries in hand and felt the urge to drop the bags on the kitchen chair, he paused. Adjusted. Took a moment to finish the task fully instead of halfway. All because of a sound he no longer needed to hear. Just remember. This is what Japanese elders understand that most American homes overlook. Mess doesn't begin with things. It begins with moments. With the small choice to put something down just for now, or the intention to come back to it later, which often turns into next week. The trick isn't to get better at cleaning up after the pile forms. It's to gently interrupt the pattern that leads to the pile in the first place. And that interruption? It doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need to shame you. It just needs to be there. This idea may seem unfamiliar in the US, but it can be quietly life-changing for seniors. You can create your own form of interruption that fits your home and your life. Maybe it's a squeaky floorboard you leave squeaky near your most cluttered room. Maybe it's a specific song you play when you feel tempted to dump items on the counter. Maybe it's as simple as a sticky note on the fridge that asks, "Are you adding or finishing?" What matters is this: you don't wait for the mess to overwhelm you. You design tiny moments that catch you mid-motion, before the pile forms. Mr. Taraji says he hasn't tripped over anything in his hallway in over 10 years. Not because he became more organized, but because the house reminds him, in its own gentle way, to stay present. You don't need a stricter routine. You just need a smarter interruption. Habit 3. Make the floor speak. In Mr. Taraji's living room, the floor isn't just something you walk on. It's something you read. You could walk in and know, almost instantly, what kind of day he's had, without him saying a word. That's not an accident. It's a habit he learned from his late wife, Aiko, who grew up in a home with tatami floors in Kyoto, where space isn't just organized, it's expressive. In traditional Japanese homes, the floor is sacred. Not because it's fancy, but because it's present. You sit on it, sleep on it, eat near it. Children crawl across it, and elders stretch their legs upon it. So the floor isn't treated as a dumping ground or staging area, it's treated as a kind of voice. And when something is placed on it, it's intentional. It speaks. Mr. Taraji picked up this mindset slowly, after decades of watching Aiko interact with their space in a way that seemed almost artistic. If she placed one cushion near the window, it was a sign, this is a good place to rest today. If a small basket sat near the hallway, it meant something needed to go out the door. There was no label, no explanation, just presence. Over time, he realized, the floor says something, whether we mean it to or not. One day, long after she was gone, he looked around his home and saw what his floor had started saying without him noticing, I'm overwhelmed. Shoes piled by the door. A vacuum cord never fully wound. 3 folded blankets slouched beside a coffee table, all meant to be put away soon. Nothing awful, just background noise. But it built up. So he stopped asking himself, is the house clean? And started asking, what is the floor trying to tell me today? And that simple shift changed everything. In Japan, elders often use this principle to guide their home energy. An empty floor says the house is at rest. One item placed with care, like a tray, or a cushion, or a book, creates invitation. More than that, it begins to shout. Not in anger, but in overstimulation. The floor, they believe, reflects the nervous system of the home. For seniors in the US, this might sound unusual. We're used to seeing the floor as passive, a background surface. But what if, like Mr. Taraji, you let it become a signal? You don't need to clear everything. Just start by observing it. What's underfoot right now that doesn't need to be? What's sitting on the ground that could be lifted, both physically and emotionally? This habit isn't about getting down on your hands and knees. It's about raising your awareness. When the floor feels restful, the room feels easier to breathe in. You move slower. You think clearer. You aren't dodging bags or stepping over laundry baskets. You aren't telling yourself, I'll deal with it later. You're letting your home speak in a calm, clear voice. As Mr. Taraji says, if the floor is busy, the house is nervous. But when it's clear, the house finally exhales. Maybe today's the day you listen. Habit 4. Build stopping zones. On the edge of Mr. Taraji's kitchen counter, just to the right of the sink, sits a shallow ceramic bowl. It's nothing special. Earth-toned, a bit chipped on one side. At first glance, it looks like a dish that hasn't been put away yet. But that bowl is actually one of the most powerful habits Mr. Taraji uses to keep his home under control, without ever organizing a thing. He calls it his stopping zone. A habit he picked up from watching older relatives during visits to Japan in the 1970s, where tidy homes weren't built on discipline, but on design. Unlike in many American households where everything is stored out of sight, Japanese elders often create small, intentional landing spots, places where daily clutter is allowed to collect temporarily. The trick? These zones are deliberately small. They're meant to stop the spread of clutter in its tracks, not hide it. For Mr. Taraji, that bowl near the sink isn't there for decoration. It's there for all the tiny objects that tend to wander. A rubber band from the mail, a twist tie, a pen he used in the morning, the spare key he forgot to hang. Instead of scattering those items across 5 surfaces, or pretending he's going to put each one away immediately, he gives them all one destination. But here's where the brilliance comes in. The bowl can only hold so much. And when it fills, that's his cue. Not to deep clean the kitchen. Not to reorganize the whole drawer system. Just to empty one bowl. A 5-minute reset. A controlled spill. Japanese elders understand that mess doesn't happen all at once. It accumulates in quiet places. The problem is, when we try to eliminate all clutter completely, we give it nowhere to land. So it hides. It spreads. It builds behind closet doors, beneath beds, and at the bottoms of tote bags. But when you allow small messes to happen in specific, visible places, they never turn into chaos. This principle can be applied to every room in the house. A tray at the end of the hallway. A small basket by the front door. A cloth napkin on the nightstand. These aren't dumping grounds. They're permission slips, spaces that say, it's okay to pause. But not forever. For seniors, especially those dealing with limited energy, memory fatigue, or overwhelm, this habit is a quiet lifesaver. You don't need to put everything away right now. You just need one small zone that tells you, enough has gathered, let's clear this one thing. Mr. Taraji says, I used to let things pile up because I didn't want to deal with all of it. Now I deal with a little, before it becomes a lot. A single bowl, acting like a pressure valve. Not to prevent clutter completely, but to keep it from turning into something bigger than it needs to be. If you've ever looked around your house and thought, where do I even start? Maybe don't. Start smaller. Start with a bowl. Let the overflow, not the guilt, be your signal. Habit 5. Schedule emotion, not tasks. Every Sunday morning, without fail, Mr. Taraji takes out the ironing board from behind the laundry room door, unfolds it slowly, and lays a single cotton blouse across it, one of his late wife Iko's. He doesn't wear it, and it's not for anyone else. He smooths the fabric gently, presses the collar first, then moves in long careful strokes down the sleeves. There's no urgency. No pile of clothes waiting behind it. Just one shirt. One memory. One quiet ritual. This isn't a task. It's a release. In many Japanese homes, especially among older generations, emotion is not left to chance, it's scheduled. Not in the way Americans schedule doctor's appointments or grocery runs, but through intentional, quiet physical acts that allow feelings to move through the body before they harden into weight. These are not chores. They are emotional clearings. When Iko was alive, she used to say, if the home doesn't cry a little, it holds too much. Mr. Taraji never understood what she meant until after she was gone, when the silence in the house became louder than anything he'd ever heard. At first, he filled the void with distractions. Rearranging cabinets. Overcleaning drawers. Trying to organize the ache away. But nothing stuck. The mess kept returning. Not on the floor, but inside him. That's when he remembered her habits. How she used to fold hand towels with care after receiving hard news. How she dusted her father's old bookshelf the same week every year, not because it needed dusting, but because it brought her back to a childhood goodbye she hadn't wanted to forget. These actions weren't about the objects. They were about the emotion inside the moments. So he tried it. Just one thing. The shirt. That act, repeated every Sunday, gave him something more powerful than a chore chart or a decluttering system. It gave him permission to process. The house began to feel lighter, not because it was cleaner, but because it was no longer holding grief in still corners. This habit is profound for seniors in the US, many of whom are living with layers of quiet emotional buildup. The passing of a spouse, the silence after kids move away, the strain of daily fatigue. Instead of trying to tackle it through to-do lists or productivity, Japanese elders give it shape through small, scheduled movements. Actions that allow the heart to exhale. You don't have to iron. You can water a plant once a week in memory of someone. Light a candle for 5 minutes every Friday evening. Touch an old quilt with your full attention. The point is not the task, it's the tenderness. You're giving your home away to help you process what the mind can't always sort out on its own. As Mr. Taraji says, I don't need to organize my emotions. I just need to let them move. And when they move, the house doesn't hold them for me. So instead of scheduling more chores, maybe schedule one moment each week to feel something on purpose. You'll be surprised how little clutter builds up when the heart isn't carrying the weight alone. Habit 6. Use exits as filters. When Mr. Taraji leaves a room, whether it's the kitchen, the bathroom, or even the hallway closet, he does something unusual. He stops at the doorway, turns back, and looks. Not for anything dramatic. Not to double-check the light switch or see if the door is shut tight. He simply takes in the space and asks himself one quiet question. Would someone walking in right now think this room is finished? He's not asking if it's spotless. He's not measuring symmetry. He's just checking for completion, that quiet, satisfying sense that the space has exhaled. That it's not in mid-sentence. That it's not still waiting for something to be put away, adjusted, or resolved. This habit might seem small, but it has transformed the way his entire home feels, and how it maintains itself without endless effort. It came from something his wife Aiko used to say when he'd leave the room with cabinet doors open or papers half sorted on the table. If you leave a room unfinished, it forgets how to rest. In Japanese culture, particularly among elders, there's an awareness that exits matter, not just where you're going, but what you're leaving behind. The final glance before leaving a space is considered not a check for flaws, but a closing ritual. And when practiced consistently, this gentle habit prevents messes from building invisibly. For Mr. Taraji, it started with one habit, turning back to the bathroom after brushing his teeth. He'd catch small things, an open toothpaste cap, a towel slouched over the edge of the hamper, a stray comb resting on the toilet tank. None of them were big, but left unattended day after day, they became visual noise. What's important here is that this is not perfectionism. He never asks, "Is this room clean?" He asks, "Is it done?" There's a huge difference. Clean often leads to guilt. Done leads to clarity. Over time, this practice became second nature. It's now part of his rhythm, not a chore. And because he always exits a room with intention, he rarely walks back into a sense of overwhelm. The room greets him with completion, not confusion. For seniors, especially those dealing with forgetfulness, fatigue, or simply the creeping buildup of unintentional clutter, this 1-second habit can quietly change everything. You don't need to overhaul your house. Just try building in this glance. Before you leave the living room, the laundry room, even the porch, turn, breathe, and ask, would someone walking in feel like this room has finished speaking? If the answer is yes, you've done enough. If the answer is no, it probably only takes one soft gesture to fix it. Straighten a throw pillow, close a drawer, return the TV remote. As Mr. Taraji says, I don't clean as much as I used to. I just don't let things trail behind me anymore. And when the rooms feel resolved, your mind does too. Habit 7. Let the house disagree with you. There's a small square mirror on the wall just inside Mr. Taraji's front entrance. It's not decorative. It's not there to check his hair. It's a habit, one that dates back to something his wife once told him. Don't just live in your house. Let it answer back. In most American homes, cleaning is reactive. We wait for the pile to get high, the dust to show, or the mood to sour, and then we act. But in many Japanese households, especially among seniors, the relationship with the home is two-way. The house isn't something to conquer. It's something to listen to observe, to learn from. And if you do it right, the house will gently push back. It will tell you when something's wrong, long before you notice the mess. That's why Mr. Taraji's mirror isn't for reflection, it's for feedback. When he walks in and something feels off, he doesn't blame himself. He lets the house speak. Maybe the chair is angled too sharply. Maybe the curtain has bunched strangely. Maybe the trash bag is almost full, and the corner of the room is sagging because of it. Nothing dramatic. Just a faint tension in the space. He doesn't call it clutter. He calls it disagreement, a subtle misalignment between how the house wants to feel and how it actually does. Instead of ignoring that unease, he responds with one small action. Straighten a frame. Wipe a surface. Return a book to the shelf. One gesture, not to fix everything, but to re-establish agreement. This practice is rooted in an unspoken principle common in older Japanese homes. The house is alive with memory, mood, and movement. If something feels unsettled, it probably is. And your body can tell, even if your brain can't quite articulate why. For seniors, this is a powerful shift. We're often taught to tune out our homes until something demands attention. But what if your house is always offering information? What if your uneasiness isn't about aging or being tired, but about a space that's slightly out of sync with you? Mr. Taraji says the mirror helps him notice what the room won't say out loud. He never walks past it without at least glancing once. If something tugs at his attention, he trusts that feeling. Not in a superstitious way, but in the same way you'd notice tension in a friend's face. You don't need to know the exact cause to respond with care. This habit doesn't require mirrors. Your house might speak through light, too dim in the afternoon. Through sound, a hum you've been ignoring. Through touch, an object you always bump but never move. The point is to stop treating your home like a silent servant. Let it vote. Let it nudge. Let it tell you where peace is waiting to return. Because when your home feels settled, so do you. And sometimes, the only thing standing between you and clarity is the decision to pause, and let the house disagree with you. Mr. Taraji doesn't hustle through his home anymore. He doesn't keep a running list taped to the fridge or set reminders on his phone to tidy up. He doesn't manage his home like a project or patrol it like a problem waiting to explode. What he does is far simpler, and far more powerful. He pays attention early. He listens before the house has to raise its voice. There's no strict system. No hard rules. Just rhythm, sensitivity, and trust in something few people ever think to trust, the emotional pulse of a living space. Over time, Mr. Taraji began to realize something most of us miss entirely. His house wasn't working against him. It wasn't a burden or a list of tasks in waiting. It was speaking, softly, subtly, constantly. Through the floor. Through forgotten corners. Through tiny patterns that told him when the energy had shifted, when a moment had been left unresolved, or when something simply needed to be witnessed before being put away. He used to respond only when things got loud. When clutter stacked. When drawers jammed. When he tripped or got overwhelmed. That's how most people do it. But that kind of cleaning feels like rescuing a house in distress. And at 84, Mr. Taraji realized he didn't want to keep rescuing things. He wanted to partner with them. So he stopped trying to control his home, and started collaborating with it. That change made everything feel lighter. Now, when the spoon on the counter is out of place, he doesn't mutter or sigh. He smiles. The house is waving at me, he says, telling me it needs a small favor. And the result? He no longer spends hours catching up. He no longer walks into a room and feels heaviness before he can even identify why. His space holds him, not because it's perfectly designed, but because he's trained himself to hear its voice before the silence turns into shouting. If you've spent years trying to tidy up after the fact, waiting for clutter to pile, for frustration to peak, maybe it's time to do what Mr. Taraji does. Start earlier. Quieter. With more curiosity than shame. Instead of organizing the mess, ask, what is this space trying to say? Which of these 7 habits felt strange to you? Which one stirred something familiar, like a truth you've always known but never spoken? Leave us a comment below. We want to know how your house talks, and what you're starting to hear now. And if this video didn't just give you tips, but gave you permission to live differently with your home, click like, subscribe, and share it with someone whose space feels heavy right now. They might not need a better system. They might just need a better way to listen.